Welcome to the second video in what I hope is 5 short videos on creating a chatbot using the various features of Office 365 and Azure. And in this video we're going to be setting up Lewis, which is going to be the language understanding piece of our chatbot, which is kind of the soul of our chatbot. What Lewis does is it helps figure out what a user's asking for whenever they type in a question. It determines what their intent is and then feeds that back, and we can then use that intent to decide how we want to respond to a user. So let's just go ahead and get started. I've logged into Lewis with my Azure account. I'm going to go to my apps and I'm going to create a new app, and we will call this Hillbilly bot. Stay consistent. And it's going to be in English. So here what we need to do is we can create new intents. So what we do is we give our intent a name. So let's say we want our bot to be able to respond to people when they say hello. So we're going to create an intent called greeting. And now we need to add several samples of what do we mean by a greeting. What is a greeting? And the more samples you can give, the better your bot is going to respond and be able to tell what a user wants. So I can say things like hi, hello, howdy, hey there, hola. Let's see what else. Oh, that's good enough. Okay. So we've put in some options now for what a greeting would be. And now we can train our bot. We can train Lewis, I guess I should say. And this is what helps Lewis learn what users are trying to actually say. So now that we have Lewis trained for greetings, we can actually come over here into our test and we can type a sentence. So I can say howdy. And it comes back and it says it thinks howdy is a greeting, and then there's this score. It's 97% sure that I was giving you a greeting. So I could type in how are you doing today? And it's still coming back and saying it thinks that's a greeting, but it's only 58% sure because that's just, it doesn't really match any of the utterances that are currently there. So that means if you really wanted this to be determined as a greeting, then you could go in there and you could add that as a new utterance for greeting. So what you do is you would come in here, you would create as many of these intents as you wanted to. You could do one for based upon your company FAQ. That's always a great place to start. So if you go to your company FAQ and think about what a user may want to type, let's go ahead. Let's just do that on the fly while we're here. Why don't we? Let's see. Let's do Microsoft Ignite had a good FAQ, so I'm going to go Microsoft Ignite FAQ. So here's the FAQ from 2018. Say, who should attend Microsoft Ignite? That is a question that people ask or from their FAQ. So if I come over here, I could create a new intent. So you go into build, you create new intent, and we'll call this who should attend. That is the intent name. We could say who should attend, who should show up, should I attend, do I need to be there? And you can see by adding this different variations of how to ask the same question, you can start to get a better idea for Lewis's ability to be able to detect what a person's going to say. So let's go ahead and train on those. And now we can test that again. And we can say, let's say who should go. Because we didn't actually do that one, did we? We say, who should go? Well, it still thinks that that was who should attend, and it's 89% sure. So even though we didn't have the utterance of who should go, Lewis was able to determine that's most likely what the person was asking. Okay? So all this makes sense. So you go in there and you create all of these intents, and then we'll be able to use those later to actually give responses for what those intents should be. So now that we have a couple of utterances and intents set up, let's go ahead and publish Lewis. So let's click on the publish button, let's publish it. And then when the publishing is complete, we can go see the endpoints for Lewis as well. So here we have the endpoint. If we go to that endpoint, we can actually just paste it into the URL here of our browser, and it'll bring back a JSON object with whatever someone typed. So if we go here to the query string variable and type in a query of who should attend, it comes back, and you can see based on that JSON object that it thinks the top scoring intent is who should attend, and it's 96% sure. It then shows you all the intents we have and what it thinks the probability of those others being the intents. Okay? So what this says is we can now write some JavaScript or jQuery to make a REST call to this endpoint with a query that a user types in, and we can get back what their actual intent should be. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now to that web page that we have in the static Azure website. So if you don't know about this static website, go back to video 1 in this series where we quickly create that website. But here we have the HTML for that. So again, we are referencing jQuery. We have an input box that is going to capture the user's query. What did they type in? And then we've got a span that's just a log for displaying information. And this is going to be displaying what Lewis thinks the intent is and what the score was, because that's what we want to display to the user at this point. So when the user presses enter, that's when we're going to query Lewis. So what we're going to do is we're going to get that text that the user types in that query text, and then we need to call that endpoint for Lewis. So let's go back into Lewis over here. Let's get this endpoint and let's paste it into our script. And let's get rid of this question because we don't need that. Okay, so there's the endpoint that we got from Lewis. We're going to be making an AJAX call to that. And when the call is complete, we're going to read what Lewis thinks the intent is and what that score was from that object, which is data, top scoring intent, and top scoring intent score. And we know that structure because, again, if we look here, we have top scoring intent, and top scoring event score. So that's where that data comes from that we're going to display. We're then going to take that information and we're just going to put it into that log span and display it to the user and say, hey, here's what we think your intent is. Okay? That's all there is to that. So let's go ahead and go back into our Azure website, and let's go to our web container and upload that updated default file. So let's choose a file, default, and upload that. And we want to tell it to overwrite it as well. Okay, so the file is there. We can now come back to our static web page and let's load that beautiful looking page. Isn't that just gorgeous? And I can type in a query and I can say hello, and it comes back. Lewis is coming back and saying he thinks that's a greeting. I guess it could be a she too, but Lewis thinks that that intent is a greeting, and Lewis is 97% sure. And I can say who should go, and we're getting back an intent saying this intent is who should attend, 89% sure. Okay, so we now have the basis of what we need so that a user can start asking questions, and then we have a pretty good probability of understanding, hey, what is this person trying to ask? So the next thing we need to do now is we need to actually store the information for what these responses are going to be. So in the next video, we're going to be doing a quick video on storing the information in a list in SharePoint Online, and that is then going to be updated into our script so that we can read the value from that SharePoint list and based on the intent, and just get that information and display it to the user. Okay, So stay tuned for that next video, and here we go.